What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Prospero.ai stock market live streams here on an FOMC rate decision day, which they stood still on rates, which we'll get into later on, and probably the biggest single earnings day of this quarter, where we have Microsoft, Meta, Tesla all this afternoon, and then Apple tomorrow, which we will get into again today. Be sure to like the video if you're watching this live and you're rolling onto the stream now. Hello, welcome. I see JC and Johnny have already commented in YouTube. Thanks, guys, for saying hello. Good afternoon. If you're watching this in the future, we get some watches on the run back recap after it's posted. So be sure to drop a like still if you're watching later on. But I will take you guys all through the topics we have for today. We are chock full of topics, so hopefully we get through all of them. We will be starting with the Fed decision, and now that if you guys were here for our Monday stream, we were talking about the Japanese yen carry trade. I'm going to ask George, is the Fed's rate cut decision being impacted by this? Because I believe the Bank of Japan and the Fed, the closer those rates come together, the more pressure that is put on that trade. So maybe the BOJ is impacting the Fed's rate cut decisions, even though they haven't explicitly said that already. But we will discuss that. Then I want to get into a sector that we've been discussing a lot. It was one of our top sectors of the year, being that LEU was one of our top stocks. So the Department of Energy came out with updates for the nuclear sector, which is sending some of these stocks higher today. Let's take a look at some of them here and see if they are still rallying as we are beginning the stream right now. We will look at LEU, which is up over 4% today. Oklo, oh my goodness, up almost 10% on the day. SMR up over 6%, so all of them are rising. Some good news from the government in terms of support for those stocks and that sector. Then we'll be getting into Amazon announcing another round of layoffs. This time, 16,000 jobs they are cutting, which brings the total to around 30,000 since October, and it's about 10% of their corporate workforce. So how worrisome is this? Is this the silent firing trend that we were mentioning all the way back when this started? But the impact of AI on the job market and companies becoming more efficient, allowing them to lay off people. Is this another step in that direction? Then we'll get into a robotics stock, which actually one of our viewers brought up on the streams a few weeks ago when we were discussing some of these companies. It's Rich Tech Robotics, and they were up huge yesterday. Let's take a look at them today, see if they're able to maintain those gains. But they announced a new partnership with Microsoft, which sent the shares flying higher. They're down 9% today, but after being up, I believe it was over 50% yesterday or close to it, holding on to most of those gains, but they are lower here right now. But yes, they partnered with Microsoft, so a big sign of belief for the investors and everybody involved with that company. A question from Discord and a stock we've been covering since it's been so volatile. It's about the Medicare Advantage rates for 2027. A lot of the healthcare stocks were down after UNH reported and after these updated rates were announced. So we'll talk about UNH and that whole sector and space, how interesting it is now that they've gone down again. Are they buy the dip candidates? This is another callback to a prior stream. I'm not sure who brought it up, but there was someone who was watching who called Carvana a scam company. And it's funny, Carvana is, well, not funny if you're a Carvana shareholder, but Carvana is now down today close to 20% after a short seller has come out and questioned their practices and made some claims against them. Hussein, and you're in the stream. That's awesome. So I'm glad you're back here today, ready for us to follow up on this. I wonder if you were wondering if we were going to bring up Carvana, but yeah, isn't that crazy? So they're down 20%. So your hunch seems to be correct, at least if this short seller is proven to be right. But we'll talk about that and Carvana's stock reaction. And if this story is true, maybe there's a lot more downward move and momentum to come in the future. You're saying it's that hard to time it though? Yes, indeed. A few more topics to go through. Obviously, we're going to discuss probably hit on Microsoft, Meta, and Tesla again today. But we covered them on Monday in detail, so we might just give our last minute thoughts on them towards the end of the stream. I see Mario's in the chat. Ola from Mazunta Beaches, no snow. Oh my gosh, Mario, you are lucky. I'm looking out my window right now at about 15 inches of snow and having freezing weather here in the Northeast. So the snow is not going anywhere. And if anything, I think we might be getting some more this weekend. So I am jealous of you, Mario. I will swap places with you if you if you agree. Another story we'll talk about is Wix. So we discussed Wix on the streams prior. They've looked good in the signals from time to time, not recently, and George's opinion on them was pretty low, being that Lovable and a lot of other companies are going at that space. They announced a massive buyback, not in total dollar terms, when you compare them to the mega cap giants that are having tens of billions of dollars worth of buybacks, but in terms of their market cap to the announced size of the buyback, pretty large. So $2 billion buyback and only about a 5 to $5.25 billion market cap. So, you know, I'm wondering just how important is that for a company? Like, it seems like if they're going to be committing to buy back that many shares, um, it's a massive sign of confidence and a huge percentage of the company's value being bought back. So, what does that mean for that stock? Then, last but not least, if we have time, I am highly doubtful we'll have time for this topic today. So, it might be a carryover for Monday. But I want to ask George, we talk a lot about tech stocks and growth stocks on the stream. Maybe we will try to scratch the itch of any value investors that watch the streams and are like, hey, they never talk about value stocks. I want to ask George, what are the best moats outside of tech? So if anybody who's watching now and hangs out until we get to that topic later on, brainstorm. Maybe you'll have a few companies to chime in and see what George thinks of them. I thought about this topic because I was looking at how bad PayPal has been, and then somehow I got onto Visa, and I was like, Visa has seems to have a pretty great moat, and they're a massive company, and the my brain just started brainstorming from there. So yeah, we'll hit on any companies that are not tech that have a great moat, and maybe I have a feeling these companies would tend to be more value based than growth based, but we'll get to that later on. So what we will do now, everybody, as we are just waiting for Georgie Boy to join us, we will look at the net option sentiment in QQQ and SPY in the Prospero app. JC commented to Mario, he's rumming it in that he's got all that good weather. Yeah, I'm sure we're all just everybody here up in any northern part of the United States. It's been freezing. But let's take a look at QQQ and SPY in Prospero for net option sentiment, and then we will actually look at the overall market return on the day now that the Fed has made their decision. QQQ is at 21 right now. It's been a little bit more volatile recently after staying in the single digits for much of January. It popped all the way up into the 20s and then in the teens and back and forth. And now it's kind of just been range bound sideways, but at least it's making a little bit of a move off the lowest levels that it was at recently. SPY is a different story. SPY has been pinned at 0 for the entire time series graph in the Prospero app, and it is still there today. So nothing has changed for the SPY in terms of net option sentiment. Let's look at how the markets are moving ahead of the major earnings and post-Fed decision. So the QQQ is up just under 0.5% today. SPY and Dow Jones basically flat, barely up, and the Russell just slightly in the red now. Really not much movement in the overall indices throughout the day today or even after the Fed decision and Jerome Powell speaking. So probably not much of anything that has shocked the markets out of the Fed. And also maybe just waiting for the mega earnings we are getting this afternoon. Let me look through now, see how some of the Mag 7 companies and other stocks are moving today. So we have Apple, Amazon in the red, Google in the green, Meta, Microsoft red, Tesla green. Let's look at Nvidia. Nvidia is in the green. So very mixed in amongst the Mag 7 companies here. Let's look at Bitcoin, the lowly Bitcoin. Bitcoin is in the green, but not up too much, but it is in the green here today and trying to reclaim that 90K level. It looks like it's poked it a few times today, but it's just under it right now. And it was dropping pretty good when we were last chatting on Monday. So it's up from those lowest levels. Let's see if anything else is moving big here today. Like I said in the beginning, the nuclear stocks were up, and we'll get into that in detail. One of the stocks that just um, day after day after day seems to be rallying, and no change here today is SNDK, now at $528 per share and a market cap of $77 billion. Oh my goodness. In the last year, it's about to hit 1,000% gains. Wow. Just a crazy, crazy move for this company. And when does it end? We shall see. We could look at gold and silver too. I feel like we have to highlight gold and silver more until either the rally pauses or there's a pullback in them, because it's they're doing their own best impression of SNDK. Gold is up again today, up almost 3% here, approaching the $500 level for the GLD. And silver is in the green as well, up 2%. It is now over the $100 mark for SLV, and no end in sight for gold or silver, at least right now. Let's see, anything else moving big here today? Oh, it looks like Carvana is catching a little bit of a bid, not down 20% anymore. Hussein down just 16% now. So, but yes, still down quite a bit. Mario said AST is doing great, so gracias. Let's check in on ASTS. Wow, ASTS up 10% today, now at $122 per share, and I believe an all-time high. So yes, ASTS doing fantastic again today. That's been a great stock and great call out from George and Prospero Signals, and all of our regular viewers, I'm sure, are well aware of ASTS. STX up quite a bit. Let's take a look at STX. What is STX? Oh, no, that's not it. Seagate Technology up 20% here today. Seagate shoots higher. Oh, wait, let me read this for you guys. Seagate soars after earnings as Wall Street gushes. Hard disk drive maker Seagate Technology soared Wednesday, 20% gain. Once stayed maker of hard disk drives on track for one of its best days of the last decade. It seems like the AI infrastructure trade is in full swing right now. If you are a chip maker, hardware maker, materials, if you have anything to do with the infrastructure of the AI build out, it seems like you are in the perfect place to catch momentum in this current market. Oh, it's on the short-term bull and Prospero app. There you go. So for everybody, if you don't know or you're newer to Prospero, once you open the Prospero app, that is instantly where you go to. And it's a list of 10 companies. And STX is still there with an 85 net option sentiment, 91 technical, 80 net social, 80 profitability. Ooh, an interesting list here today. We have Nokia making the list of the short-term bulls. That's interesting to see. We also have Root there, which has been in and out, and we've mentioned it with Lemonade in the past. Uh, just rounding off the list, you have UNH, Oracle, Costco, Amazon, Google, Meta, and Western Digital Corporation actually at the top of the list with 94 net option sentiment, 87 net social, 94 technical. So yeah, a great list, a great way to get new companies on your radar if you are, running out of ideas or kind of bored, or just, always like to be looking at like maybe what's the next thing that will run in the markets. And that list updates every single day. And there's a short-term, long-term, bull, and bear. So there's a lot of companies that you can look through, all for free, in the Prospero app, which is great. Actually, the list just updated right now, and there's a new addition to the list. CLS, Celestica, just got added on there. I wonder which company was removed. STX is still there. Nokia is still there. But that's going to do it for Prospero app for right now. We'll look back into the market. See if there's anything else shocking going on while we are just buying our time here. Super interesting to see Mobileye. We covered them a while ago, down under $10 now. down 4% today after it looked like they had just, we covered how they made that acquisition and one of the few full self-driving technology plays. Just no love for them and hitting an all-time low now, actually. So Mobileye has not caught any bullish activity, even from making an acquisition. One of the companies I also did see, kind of similar to probably Seagate and Western Digital and the SNDKs, was Applied Digital. APLD was up quite a bit and has been up quite a bit and looked good in Prospero signals. So it's another one to put on your guys' radar if you haven't been following it. I feel like there definitely has been a transition in where the momentum is happening in the market. There was so many stocks in 2025 that ran so much, like the Robinhoods of the world, the Palantirs of the world, that they were kind of the winners last year, and they've been trending sideways to even kind of downwards in recent months, and we've seen kind of a new crop of leaders, and it's mainly the AI infrastructure, it seems like, which I guess you could say nuclear is a part of, but also all the stocks we've been talking about here already that have been the winners. Even ASTS and the space stocks, I guess you could kind of say them too. Hello, George. Welcome to the stream today. But it seems like there's definitely been a bit of a rotation going on in where the momentum is lying. So, George, we had the Fed meeting today, which I don't think shocked anybody that they held rates steady. The markets are all in the green right now, except for actually the Dow has gone 0.01% red on the day, but mainly the Russell is the only one in the red, and nothing is making big moves here today. We obviously have a massive earnings day just after the bell with trillions of dollars in market cap set to report in Microsoft, Tesla, Meta.
Yeah, we're holding two of those. I'm gonna fire up the whisper query.
Yes. So you are expecting to hear good things from which are the two of the three?
Microsoft and Meta that we're holding. Well, we're not deciding to hold them yet. We got to how do I? Yeah, I need to find them.
So as we're typing here, I have a question for you about these two. What are you going to be looking for your search right now in terms of making your decision onto whether you are going to hold through earnings or not? What is the main factor?
This perplexity thing, right? I mean, it's very it's very, very simple, right? Because I'm only holding these because the metrics look good. And in previous iterations, we might be like, well, the metrics look good, but the metrics aren't always predictive on earnings because for the very reason that institutions are wrong a lot more about earnings, especially if it's a surprise, than they are about anything else, right? And that's our whole philosophy. We go with the overall institutional idea. But, just as this very specific example, we did hold Meta last time. They double beat, increased guidance, and then Zuckerberg made them nervous about CapEx. And I don't think he's going to make them any less nervous about CapEx this time. So, part of me says, maybe we know that, and maybe logically, and that's where I would talk myself out of it. And maybe that's the right thing. I talked myself out of it in the past. But what I do like about that perplexity whisper number thing is, similar to Prospero, it gives me more objective numbers, right? If I'm talking to you about okay, the numbers say this, but this very specific thing that happened with Mark Zuckerberg last time, is kind of making me shy away. That kind of is against the process and strategy that we normally, our go with the numbers strategy. But a go with the numbers strategy and a process we always talk about only really works if you trust that process, right? I trust the process of applying the Prospero signals in the normal markets categorically. But because earnings are a little different, I don't necessarily trust only the Prospero signals in the same way I do for making the rest of my decisions. So this added framework of being okay, if I can look at the game theory well and combine them well with Prospero signals, that's good.
So it sounds like, based on what you were saying about Meta and Mark Zuckerberg, you expect these mega caps to either maybe even up their spends or just keep them steady in terms of the AI infrastructure. And we've been seeing a lot of those stocks running. SNDK is up more today. We were talking about Seagate, which is on the Prospero short-term bull list, and a lot of them are having the most momentum of anywhere in the market. Is that a way to play these tech stocks if you are more confident on them maintaining their spend or upping in that area versus just like investing in them purely, more so going into the AI momentum infrastructure players instead of the mega caps?
Yeah, I mean, I really like, there's been a few stocks that are more stringent, risk management practices have had us miss a bit. Like, as good as our year is, we dropped CoreWeave recently, right before it went on a big run, and we had some conviction there. We were just, risk managing with low option sentiment. ASTS obviously this week, we saw some good timing to get back in, but again, the overall market risk, had us shy away a little bit. So yeah, sometimes that's how it goes. I am I do still think I'm definitely bullish on AI hardware plays, and I'm kind of talking myself into actually, I really like that idea. NBIS and CoreWeave as a hedge CoreWeave as a hedge to Meta, right? Because they're basically, if the market's creeped out by increased CapEx spending, that's also got to be good. That's also got to be good for CoreWeave and NBIS. But I think CoreWeave is moving. Let me look at where they are in options. Like, CoreWeave is just, I like CoreWeave a lot better at like $100 or less than I like it. Oh, look, net option sentiment agrees with me. CoreWeave net option sentiment at $77. Yeah, I just like, when CoreWeave gets above 100, I get like, that's been the price level I've watched this on for like a long time. Let's check MBIS though. Maybe there's a play here. MBIS 73. Interesting. What other hyperscalers are in our like radius? If anyone wants to call them out, we'll check them out. I was not happy enough. I like this idea of trading the hyperscaler as like a pair trade, but I'm gonna pull momentum score and see if I can get any ideas.
Maybe this idea, we're a bit late to the party because it seems like a lot of those names have been running. So
yeah, they've been running and but they've been running at higher net option sentiment levels. Now they're a bit lower. Let's see. I mean, let's go to we can come back to it. I'll just do this in the background a little bit.
All right. So Sean is asking in the chat about SPY and how the net options is at 0 and has been there for the month. Is this unusual?
It is and it isn't, right? Like, what we always tell people is it's like, especially net option sentiment is a reflection of the feelings of the market, right? And we I think this week, it might have been this week or last, is just like, it is very hard to tell what might be, bearishness versus just like profits have been so high, carrying, as those profits increase, carrying, more and more kind of like insurance, loss minimization, SPY, SPY options or QQQ, those also become more attractive, right? And in a vacuum, that becomes more attractive. But what's different in this scenario? There might be another shutdown coming, right? We just, ousted a government, and we're talking there's just tensions with Denmark and the EU. Tangential to that, there might be, there's some, tariff news stories that might be coming. So when you throw all of that together, right, legitimate geopolitical, and I mean, obviously there's, don't need to say anything more than there's some shit going on domestically. I don't want to do that again today. You throw all that together, and especially just like huge profits, all-time highs, SPY hitting 7,000 for the first time ever. SPY said like huge profits, all-time highs, plus a lot of significant downside risk, and a stock market that's more sensitive to the news cycle than it's ever been in terms of heavy losses quickly. You kind of have to be dumb not to like pay for insurance, right? And that's what the aggressive hedging is. They've got a lot of money to pay for insurance right now. Institutions have a lot of money to pay for insurance, and they're buying the insurance, right? That's why we've tended to use them together, right? And we're not expecting, when we see something in this market that's like SPY at 0, QQQ at 14, which is where it was the last time I checked, I treat that as a market where like, okay, I'm going to be pretty even long short. I'm going to match the same desire to hedge, but I'm going to make sure I have some growth names in my portfolio that are going to do well if the market does well.
Very good answer there. And Mario was asking about a growth name and your thoughts on it for Iron, which I believe plays into the scalar discussion.
Let's check that out. I haven't checked on that in a while, but like Iron, Cypher, love this. I'm going to look at a chart. I might add Iron right now if the chart looks how I want it to.
So for the viewers, Iron upside in Prospero 95, net options 84.
I don't know. It's not quite. It touched 76.87. I'm not ready. I need to do more work. This is not a right now ad. So sorry, I should be more specific. In November, the week of November 7th, it touched 76.87. So I'm not quite sure I'm there on it, but I'll look at it more. It could be an ad.
So thank you for bringing that one up, Mario. Pretty good signals there. I have a question for you about the Fed and following up from our Monday discussion about the Japanese yen carry trade. We will be getting into that stock in just a minute, Maverick, so stick around. I'm wondering, is the Fed's decision being impacted by this? Because I believe the BOJ raising rates and the Fed and those, Japan and the USA's rates coming together is a thing that puts pressure on that. So is that kind of the elephant in the room and maybe impacting the Fed's decision even more so than inflation or jobs at this point?
Wait, you're saying the Bank of Japan is impacting the Fed's decision?
Yeah, do you think? Or no?
No. I mean, I actually do I listened. I love listening, especially if there's some Trump drama. I love listening to Powell because he's just as he's not here. Powell's not here for the drama. He's just people will try to attack him at all these different angles. And what I love about him is he's just he doesn't even get frustrated with them. He just kind of repeats the same thing. He's like, I'm not going to comment on that. I don't comment on other people. I don't comment on political things. I don't want to comment. It's funny. But I was actually what he said and why the market's rallying is, he gave credit where credit was due in the labor markets. And I think that that shows his commitment to impartiality, being impartial, right? Because if he wanted to be bitter about his about his, the charges filed against him, like all that stuff. He could have poured a lot more cold water on interest rates and the forecast than he did. He said things like tariffs are largely baked in now. So yeah, I thought that part was interesting. Where I'm relating to the Bank of Japan, he was asked specifically a question, not about the Bank of Japan, but he said something about the strength of the dollar. Yeah, that's what it was. Something about the strength of the dollar, and he was like, that's more the Treasury Department. I don't comment on those things. It's not really our wheelhouse. So I think he even gave that answer. I mean, that's what I would expect his answer to be. But, funny question for Perplexity would be like, how many times has Jerome Powell talked about his dual mandate? And it is, that's like his favorite thing to say, dual mandate. And I think he's being honest about that. I think that's like foreign country interest rates are not on his radar. He cares about labor. He cares about inflation. And that is it.
So circling back to Maverick's question about Rich Tech Robotics. So the reason why that stock was up so much yesterday, like 50+%, was a new partnership with Microsoft announced where they will collaborate on the development of this AI robot. It's down about 10% today now. We covered this one back when we were highlighting the robotics sector a few weeks ago. When a company rallies that much, I mean, this is a huge partnership, you would think, being partnered with, Microsoft. Does it give you a lot more faith and a lot more belief in this robotics company separating itself from the rest in terms of the long-term vision for it?
I don't know about that. Like, I think you always have to put that in perspective. And I think what I mean more specifically about that is like, I don't know if it's a buy now after the news. If you had conviction, that's great. Like I looked, for a stock with market cap, Prospero liked it. It looked good. I think it was like 60 in the 60s in net options and upside. And obviously that's not the space I play around with. Even for smaller cap stocks, I do like to see at least one of those numbers hit 70. So Prospero wasn't pointing to it. Not going to take that credit where it isn't there. But that's what we always say about people using Prospero. Like if you already liked Rich Tech, I don't know how to say it right. I was saying it Reich Tech in my mind. I don't know why. Rich Tech Robotics. If you like them already, you go in Prospero, you could be like, oh, that's pretty good for a smaller cap stock. I consider my thesis affirmed. And you could write it up that way. After a news event like this, I'm not sure. And the big reason I'm not sure, right, is Microsoft can afford to make a lot of these robotics bets, right? Just because this is, the first big headline on it doesn't mean they can't shell out similar or bigger checks to 10 other companies. That's when you get to these mega caps, like it doesn't matter. And they have to deliver, right? Yes, it's an edge, but that's why I made the distinction of playing something before the news announcement versus after. Like your upside from this news is, a lot priced in already. Maybe, and that's what I think you see the response to that tomorrow. Maybe people are like, okay, maybe we got a little ahead of ourselves, 40% up. So I think that's what you always have to watch out for this, especially if you're coming in now, where it's like, okay, they did get that contract, but I think the market may have like priced in that contract. All right. So now the question is like, what's the competition? Will they deliver on this? What are the chances that, Microsoft is doing this with tons of other companies and this is just the first one? All of that is the difference between did I hear a name on the internet and like it and make some money? And do I have some value investing chops where I can investigate this and actually like validate it qualitatively and figure out if I should take my like little internet find and, run home with the money for now, or maybe make a bigger bet.
So another question from the chat from NW piggybacking on what you were saying about all the conflict and tensions going on in the world and domestically right now, asking about ammunition, gun, defense companies. Would you be interested in any of those?
Oh God, I don't know if I want to make this joke, but I kind of do. Aren't guns out now? Like I thought people aren't supposed to bring guns to rallies. So I don't know. I mean, not on my bingo card for 2026 is the NRA like coming at some statements coming out of the White House. So yeah, wait, was it about guns? I see NW. Yeah, I mean, if I want to get a little dark about it, like, yeah, guns, there's some cloudiness, but is Anduril going public? I mean, I know that they're using a lot of Anduril shit for these, like, these. If you want to go like long, I can't believe I'm saying this, but like long civil war in America, long political tensions. Anduril's a really good long political tensions stock. So I don't know. It's not public yet. There's probably places where you can buy the like little like. But I know they got their paws all over this like protest stuff and surveillance around protests and a company like Palantir obviously comes to mind, but they're so big right now, like, getting a couple more orders for more protests are not really moving the needle too much for them. But Anduril is who I would go to if that's what you're thinking.
That's the guy Palmer Luckey, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched him on Joe Rogan. They have some crazy stuff they're building.
Yeah. But you also, I also feel morally obligated to say this. You are also going long our country's descent. If you do that, that's why I phrased it like that. I mean, that's not really in my moral compass thing. But I have a friend that always tells me that I shouldn't invest in Meta because they're so bad and they were like exposed and they knew about these dopamine reactions and things like that. And I'm just like, I don't know, man. Like Meta, like I don't love what any of the mega companies are doing, but like is Meta doing anything worse than like the food companies poisoning people or the energy companies destroying the planet? It's like at that point I don't really know. I don't know how to distinguish. And some people have told me like because I consider myself to be a moral person. It's like, why would you not apply that wholeheartedly? Like, they were talking about their stocks, and I was like, because at a certain point, you got to just make money in the stock market. That's what the stock market is for. If you feel bad about how you make your money, take that money and give it to charity. Take your profits and give it to charity. You're better off doing that than trying to turn investing into charity. That being said, I myself kind of draw the line at like at going long like political instability and potential like and civil war agitations. I wouldn't go long that.
We have to foster a more positive community here at Prospero. This combo is getting me a little down here today. We got to switch things up. We got to change the topic. But somebody did ask about gold in the chat, which we've been covering, but it's up again today. I don't know how much switching the topic this is. Maybe it's building off what we've been chatting about. But your thoughts on gold at the moment?
Thoughts on gold? Well, I mean, I think we're fine on that. It had like a bit of a pullback, right? I remember seeing something.
I don't think so. It was up 2% today when we were checking.
Why do we keep talking about this, Steven? I have the same.
People are asking.
Yeah, okay. I got the same. I got the same answer. It's so bubbly. Yes, it provides. If you're long only and you are worried about like you want some appreciation that could also get you kind of some disaster insurance. Yes, it's great. It's always great for that. I'd own it today, tomorrow. Like I actually was reading about platinum today. Platinum might even be a little more interesting because there's actually some supply constraints, because I guess like 80% of it comes out of South Africa and they're having some problems. So platinum might be a little more interesting. But again, you don't really know if you're priced in, the people you're up against that. But we did add a platinum stock as part of this study. What is it? It is SBSW is now on Prospero, and it premiered there at oh wow, pretty volatile. I checked it earlier and it was 81.81, and now it's 77 upside, 71 net option. So I don't know what's going on there. What's going on in the platinum markets? Anyway, my standard advice on this is I prefer shorts. If you're worried about like some kind of thing, I like to be more surgical, right? If you're worried about general market growth decline, right? That's why we have IonQ in the portfolio right now, because we think if the market changes its course, gets more concerned, IonQ is going to be a loser in that scenario. And it has like kind of some higher signals than we normally would for a short, because that's our more surgical approach to defending against the decline in growth. Then we also have things like if you're worried about the tariffs ramping up, then you might want to do something like SEC, which is the inverse consumer cyclical, or you might want to do like we've been looking at stocks like I think RRR is one of the ones that we're looking at, ANF, other stocks that have had some nice recoveries. So yeah, I think that's always my recommendation. If you're worried about something, there's no bigger mistake an investor can make than being worried about the market overall and just like generally hedging their portfolio. That could be very expensive, especially if you don't know what you're doing. If you're just like buying put options, all the time, short duration ones or whatever, because you heard some news story, that could really cut into your profits. But if you are if you're long only, as I said, if you're long only, if you have like a lot of high growth tech stuff, you don't even use inverse ETFs, which again is my recommendation over something like gold, something like SQQQ or SCC. But if you just don't want that kind and you want to be long only, then yes, gold, platinum, those are good options. Otherwise, no, because also there's some bubble risk to those. Right now, I'd be much more in favor of having them in our portfolio. I considered RGLD this weekend, but the problem is that it's so frothy. Like it could go down and it could go down 20, 30% a day for no reason, just because people start to bail and there gets to be momentum. And so that's the added risk. But like, just to be clear about the scenario analysis there, that wouldn't happen, obviously, if the market went down, right? Because that would be an obvious reason to keep rallying, moving to gold. But you could, in a good day for the market, in a medium day for the market, whatever, people can just start, changing their allocations, or people just start to take profits. That could slide pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. It is kind of funny on the day the Fed says that the economy is finding balance, finding its footing, that Amazon announces a new round of job cuts, this time 16,000, all within their corporate job positions. So now that brings the total to 30,000 since October, which is about 10% of their corporate work staff. This has to be due to AI, right? And we were hinting on this in your article way back in the day.
Oh yeah, I'm about to hit him again. I'm working on it, Stephen. Like I started gathering some articles. 15% of their HR workforce has been cut, and that's a big AI thing. But yeah, it's nice to be right. everybody that watches knows we're right pretty often here, and everybody loves to be right. This wasn't a particularly hard one, but you're welcome. But the big question here is, and I can't help but think about it, there is going to be more cuts. And one of the things I'm going to hit Jassy for is he talks out of both sides of his mouth. He says he always is like, oh, it's about, culture and, efficiency, blah, 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 when he's doing the articles about the cuts. And then on the other side, he says, oh, we're using AI to automate a lot more job functions. Like, he's open about that to the investors because he wants to be able to say that. And then on the other side, he's sitting there and being like, oh, no, well, these jobs are not about AI. These job cuts, it's, culture. So he's just like, is this going to catch up with people that are kind of talking out of both sides of their mouth? But B, are we going, like, you see this kind of stuff, and anybody that's watched me knows that I know that this is just the tip of the iceberg. And, are there any plans? Like, I really encourage people, this is something that I think should be talked about more widely. I don't think anyone's going to really do it because nobody's going to really see it. But, like, remember this, in a year when we're seeing this happen, it is really time to start, like, thinking about different kind of severance or whatever for AI type layoffs, right? Because if this job loss is coming, and we've shown the graph of, like, since ChatGPT, jobs are like this, and job losings are like this, and the stock market is like that. So that is very dangerous, because traditionally the biggest job growth fuel was the market going up. So if the market's going up and these job openings are going down, that is not a good thing. And the piper will be paid on it. I mean, the piper's going to be paid on it. We see it all the time. We see it happening. We know AI is going to only get smarter. So yeah, I mean, I personally think what has to become more of the conversation is companies should, if they're going to use AI, they should have to do something. I think a lot of, the mechanisms of this, some people agree on, but I think we could all agree on that we don't want companies to lay off a bunch of people and then the government to have to support them, right? The companies that have these jobs, I think we need to start thinking about structures for, like, if you are a large company that's basically going to cut that many jobs, I think you do have some responsibility. We've never thought about it like that, but we as a society can't just, like, leave people behind because technology's advancing. And who helps out with that? Maybe it's funding other job programs, working with the government. Like, it doesn't have to be like, here's money, but we do have to start figuring out what happens here, because, like, I know even a lot of, like, skilled labor people, like coders, that are just, like, very qualified, very experienced, and there's just less and less jobs out there for even the skilled people. And then you obviously have, like, less skilled people and, like, the robotics on the other end. Everybody's talking about robots a lot more, right? The same reason rich tech robotics is going up and Microsoft is investing in them is also the same reason we need to be very concerned about unskilled labor being replaced. So these are conversations that people need to start having. And if we don't, a lot of people are going to be sorry that we didn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy to see it all going down and covering it for years now on our streams. We got a question in our Discord that are we going to do a switch over to the other side today, or do we have 10 more minutes for topics?
We're not going to do the switch away.
Okay, good, because we got a lot of topics still. Okay, so this one came from the Discord. It was about the Medicare Advantage rates for 2027, causing a decline in healthcare stocks. And yesterday, UNH only added to that downside when they reported a bit of disappointing earnings, went down 20% yesterday. I feel like UNH got a new shareholder base in the past year as they dipped, and people were kind of excited for their earnings and sorely disappointed with this one. But how are you feeling about that whole space now with our latest events there?
Concerned. I definitely feel concerned, but also like if we have a shutdown, if there's going to be a standoff, and maybe there'll be ultimately like how I see this going, if there is a shutdown, is the Democrats will probably cave on ice for the healthcare concessions that they want. That's what That's my. It's not the same as that's just a random prediction I'm throwing out there. It's not like a high conviction prediction. But these stocks could be very like a lot of what's priced in is like these premiums like doubling, right? As part of this whole like obviously there's going to be less, like reduced Medicaid, like all that's a part of it, but if there is good news that comes out of a shutdown, there is potentially big opportunity in those stocks. Like this, like if you weren't holding UNH, right? And you want to take like a measured bet that like, hey, how much worse can this get? Like for the healthcare companies, right? Maybe you set a tight stop loss. Like you could easily see 30-40% gain in 3 months, right? There is opportunity here now. But the other side is like, it might not get solved, right? Last time we had a stoppage, the Democrats ended it on a promise that they negotiate later. Nothing really got solved, right? And if things don't get solved, if like what we don't know yet that we might get numbers on, there's a lot of people that might just go uninsured if their healthcare premiums double. And if they're uninsured, the whole system, they're not going doctors, the whole system is taking in less revenue. So there's risk on that side. So, I mean, all in all, there's more upside than downside, but it has one of those characteristics that we really like to talk about as something we don't like, which is that, like, do you want to predict if there's going to be a shutdown, if the Democrats are going to get some concessions, if they're going to cave completely? Like, I don't know. Or maybe they get concessions on ice and they forget about the healthcare thing. No idea. But this is what we always say. If you feel you have, some better understanding of how things are going to work in DC in these negotiations, if you feel you have some better understanding of the healthcare industry and you're just like, hey, I don't know how much further it could go down than this. And I actually am not too worried about people not getting health insurance or the revenue impacts of that. I have no idea how to speak to that, which is why I'm staying away from it.
Makes a lot of sense there. The next story is a callback from on our stream. I don't know if you remember, but Hussein, who was actually in the chat earlier, brought up Carvana as a scam company and asked about them. And it came out today that a short seller actually called Gotham Research came out and said that Carvana has overstated their earnings by more than $1 billion in 2023 and 2024. And that sent the shares down 20% today. Now, I feel like, I don't know if there's so many references to companies having similar stories like this since we've been discussing the streams, but I think SMCI, the questions of their accounting and how their stock dropped and was never really able to gain the momentum like they had prior to that. Do you think that this is a similar situation that could play?
Sorry, I got it. We got to deal with this meta thing. I don't have time to answer. We got to deal with this. We got to look at this game theory on Meta and Microsoft. I didn't realize how late it got. And I'm just going to walk people through like how I look at this. No time. Okay, let's look at this. Medium, large move, not a disaster. Still deserves a premium. Okay. What's the bottom line? Okay, so the street is already expecting another cap step up in CapEx. Okay. All right, that looks good. How about Microsoft? 11 straight quarters of beats. That's pretty good. Yeah, these look like strong possibilities. But I got to go now.
Duty calls.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, George. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Good luck with big tech earnings today. George is heading on out of here. Actually, we have a few minutes, so I could mention just the stories, at least that I said in the beginning. If I didn't go into any of them in detail, if people are waiting, the only ones we didn't get to or in detail were the Carvana one, which just about their earnings being questioned. The Department of Energy announcing an initiative to build out the nation's nuclear fuel supply chain, asking states to express interest in hosting nuclear life cycle innovation campuses with as much as $50 billion per location in private investment. Wix announcing a $2 billion stock buyback program, and their market cap is just over $5 billion at this point, so pretty massive compared to their overall market cap. And last but not least, which I think we will save for Monday, is the best moats outside of the tech industry. But appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. We had a lot of questions, a lot of chat discussion today, so appreciate you all. Over 1,500 people tuned in, so I imagine we got to have close to like 1,500 likes, right? No, I'm just joking, but really appreciate you guys. Good luck today, and we will see you on our streams next week, everybody. Take it easy.